Welcome to the 700 Club. Israel hit 300 targets in Lebanon today as it carried out a massive strike against Hezbollah's stockpile of missiles. The IDF is warning civilians to evacuate areas where the terror group stores and fires its weapons.
Over the weekend, Hezbollah rockets hit Israeli cities as far south as Haifa and Nazareth. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
Israel is warning Lebanese civilians to get away from homes and buildings where Hezbollah's DR-3 cruise missiles are located as it prepares a massive strike.
We advise civilians from Lebanese villages located in and next to buildings and areas used by Hezbollah for military purpose, such as those used to store weapons, to immediately move out of harm's way for their own safety.
IDF chief spokesman Daniel Hagari explained that the Russian-made cruise missiles are embedded in civilian homes and ready to launch.
Here you can see how we identified the terrorist making an opening in the building that exposed the missile. In a precise strike, the IDF eliminated the terrorist and this missile launching infrastructure shortly before the launch.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog railed against Hezbollah's 150 rocket attacks that struck deep into Israel, sending hundreds of thousands of Israelis racing into bomb shelters Sunday and forcing schools to be closed.
Children, the elderly, the sick, residents who simply wish to live in peace and security.
Israel intercepted many of the missiles in the sky, but some hit, including in Jesus' boyhood home of Nazareth. Israel is striking back hard, hitting about 400 launchers with the capability of launching thousands of rockets.
The price that Hezbollah pays is increasing. Our attacks will increase. We have attacked hundreds of terrorist targets in Lebanon in recent days.
Israel dealt a stunning blow to Hezbollah last week when it struck a building in Beirut where Hezbollah's top commanders were plotting an invasion of the north.
All of these leaders were meeting together in order to launch the same horrendous attack that we had on October 7th by Hamas, by burning Israelis, butchering them, raping their women.
In Gaza, where fighting continues, Hagari says there's no confirmation of reports that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Defense officials are unsure if he's been eliminated or gone deeper underground. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, Israel is clearly turning its attention north to southern Lebanon and the Hezbollah infrastructure there. In the category of I can't believe it, the UN is charged with making sure southern Lebanon is weapons-free. And just from that video, you see the number of embedded missile sites, cruise missile sites, all in civilian areas, all fairly open and obvious if you're on the ground and you're there. And the UN troops are supposed to be in control of that area and ensuring that it's weapon-free. Clearly, it's not, and clearly they're launching missiles into Israel, and they're targeting, of all things, soccer fields and Nazareth, these very important places within Israel. And in the middle of all of that, over this weekend, the UN dared to say that Israel was guilty of a war crime because they were trying to take out Hezbollah leadership with these explosive devices. It's absolutely incredible. This truth has been turned on its head. And you look at the source of these things, and you go, well, why in the world did these people ever get into this position of power and authority? The current head of the International Criminal Court is a Muslim from Lebanon. So is it any wonder that they're trying to charge Israel with war crimes? The chief prosecutor has a Muslim background from Pakistan. He's British, but his parents are from Pakistan. Is it any wonder? And then right here in the United States, in Wisconsin, you have this, again, truth turned on its head, where there's an accusation against the Attorney General who's bringing charges against the protesters who were violent, who took over places and and they violated civil liberty. All of these things are happening right here in America. And this attorney general was accused of bias because she's Jewish. It makes no sense outside a hatred of the Jewish people. And we have to stand against this. It's anti-Semitism of the worst kind, where we want to, the people are saying, we want to wipe Israel off the map from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Understand what that means. It means killing every single Jew in Israel, making sure Israel never exists, wiping it off the map. As Christians, let's stand for truth, let's stand for what the Bible says, and let's protect Israel. In other news, former President Donald Trump says this is his last run for president. Wendy Griffith has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Wendy?
Gordon, President Trump also said he won't debate Vice President Harris again. This as he stumped in the battleground state of North Carolina, where the embattled Republican nominee for governor just lost several members of his campaign staff. Dale Hurd has the story.
A Real Clear Politics polling average currently gives Harris a 2% lead, and statistician Nate Silver has the odds of either candidate winning at 50-50. Trump said this weekend he doesn't plan to run again if he doesn't win this year.
I think that will be it. I don't see that at all. I think that hopefully we're going to be successful.
Trump leads Harris in the polls on key issues like the border and the economy. Harris, who has been criticized for not providing specifics on her policies and whose economic proposals have been criticized even by analysts on the left, will deliver a speech on the economy this week. Trump campaigned in North Carolina this weekend, but didn't mention the Republican nominee for governor that he had backed earlier. North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson has lost at least 7 campaign staffers, including his campaign manager and director of operations, after CNN reported that Robinson had called himself a black Nazi on an online porn forum. Robinson denies making the comments. Harris says she's agreed to another debate and called on Trump to do the same.
Join me on the debate stage. Let's have another debate. There's more to talk about.
Trump says it's too late because voting has already started in some states.
She's done one debate. I've done 2. It's too late to do another. I'd love to in many ways, but it's too late.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thank you, Dale. Congressional leaders reached an agreement to avert a government shutdown. Facing a September 30th deadline, they agreed to a 3-month spending deal to keep the lights on until December. Now they're working to rally their members to pass the legislation by the end of the week. The agreement includes $232 million in additional funding for the Secret Service. This after 2 attempts on former President Trump's life in just 2 months. Pennsylvania Republican Mike Kelly is chairman of the House Bipartisan Task Force investigating the attempt on Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania in July. On ABC's This Week, Kelly said in addition to structural changes, the Secret Service needs more agents in a time of heated political rhetoric.
I will say this, our Secret Service now is trying to guard more people than they've ever had to guard in the past. And there's such a heightened atmosphere right now. I'm listening to everything that's taking place around the United States. We have people acting out in a bad way, and something spurring them on to do that. A lot of it is the rhetoric. We've got to be careful about what we say and when we say it and how it's received by somebody else.
The task force released a report listing multiple failures in Butler in July, including failure to use technology, poor communication, and complacency by agents on the scene. And Gordon, still a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah, there are so many, and how can people get so close to a presidential candidate, a former president, and why in the world would he have a light detail? It just doesn't make any sense that you wouldn't have the full protection of the United States in order to assure the election integrity. If Trump is assassinated, it's on the Secret Service, and that means it's on the current administration. They need to do everything possible to protect him. Terry?
Former Israeli Ambassador David Friedman was in our studio recently. Gordon interviewed him about the ongoing struggle in Israel. Let's take a look.
Well, former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, has written a compelling book examining the indelible impact of the October 7th Hamas massacre on Israel. In one Jewish state, Ambassador Friedman makes a case for Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria as the best outcome for Jews, Christians, and Palestinians alike.
During the Trump administration, Ambassador David Friedman helped achieve two historic milestones: relocating the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and forging the Abraham Accords, a groundbreaking move toward peace and coexistence in the Middle East. After his diplomatic service, he began the Friedman Center for Peace Through Strength. Its mission: expand the Abraham Accords and fulfill the prophetic vision of a world where nations no longer lift up swords against one another. In his latest book, One Jewish State, The Last Best Hope to Resolve the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict, featuring a foreword by Mike Pompeo, Ambassador Friedman pushes back against a two-state solution and maintains the United States has a biblical duty to support Israel annexing Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank. He advocates a return to values and divine covenants that unite the Jewish people, offering a hopeful path forward for all who live in the Holy Land.
Well, Ambassador David Friedman is here with us now, and Ambassador, it's a real honor to have you.
It's my honor to be with you.
But when I hold your book, I know it's like I'm holding something really hot here. That this is a sea change in U.S. foreign policy, going all the way back to 1948 in terms of international policy, going all the way back to the British Mandate. Why have you come to the conclusion that this two-state solution is no longer viable?
Well, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here. The two-state solution is it's been tried and failed. Is sort of the first answer. 18 years ago, Israel evacuated Gaza. Right? Hasn't been a Jew living there for 18 years. Hasn't been a soldier with boots on the ground there since just before, since after October 7th.
Why isn't that narrative part of the public consciousness? Because all of that happened in the Bush administration. It was this great push for democracy. If we give them freedom, they'll vote for democratic principles. It was all part of this sort of Arab Spring euphoria, and it obviously didn't work.
Well, they voted to elect Hamas, right? That's what they voted for. And it didn't stop the world from giving them money, so including America, much to my regret. All the administrations other than the Trump administration funded UNRWA, funded Hamas. They got lots of money from the Gulf, got lots of money from Europe. And these billions of dollars could have been used to build beautiful seafront properties like Tel Aviv has, same beaches, Tel Aviv, right? But instead they built this massive network of terror tunnels and weapons of mass destruction. So that's case number one. They had a state. There were no Jews there, no Israeli presence there, and they used it just to create a platform to kill the Jewish people. On the other side of Israel, Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank as we call it, after Oslo, the Palestinians were given about half, 40% to govern themselves, Area A and B, places like Jenin and Ramallah and Nablus, and the same thing. I mean, they've created
Bethlehem.
And Bethlehem, yes, and which went from being 80% Christian to 80% Muslim, right? Under their rule.
And that's a narrative that isn't discussed either. I used to be able to go to Bethlehem. I've been told now, don't go, because you may not be able to come back. Yeah. We can't guarantee your safety there.
I was just there, and it's really a shell of what it was during its heyday. And the Palestinian Authority, which is supposed to be the better group compared to Hamas. I mean, they have a pension system, which I think you've reported on, where they incentivize terrorists to kill Jews. You kill one Jew, you get a pension. You kill two Jews, you get a double pension.
With our tax money.
With our tax money, right? Which, again, Trump signed the Taylor Force Act. It's now observed in the breach by the Biden administration. So we have no accountability. We've established no accountability within the Palestinian world, and we just can't make this mistake another time, because it will be national suicide for the Jewish people in the land of Israel.
Do you consider this whole concept of there shouldn't be a two-state solution, there should be a one-state solution with the Palestinians having resident status? Do you see that as, will anybody at the State Department go along with this?
Not the current State Department, no. look, people say to me, well, who's going to agree to this? And my response is, I'm not sure I really care who agrees with it. I mean, Israel is in Judea and Samaria. They have military control of the area. If tomorrow, and I don't advocate this get done overnight, I mean, I think it's a trajectory. It will take a few years to do this. But if tomorrow Israel planted a flag and said, look, this is all sovereign Israel, the Palestinians would get up in the morning. They wouldn't really notice anything different. What that creates the opportunity to do over time is for Israel to do what it does well, which is to de-radicalize an Arab population. Remember, 20% of the Israeli citizens are Arab, right? 20%. And more than 20% of the elite universities in Israel are Arab students. You have a dear friend of mine is the former chairman of Bank Leumi, the largest bank in Israel. He's a Muslim Arab. Israel knows how to empower its Muslim minority, its Arab minority. And those values can be exported into Judea and Samaria in ways that no other potential sovereign could ever achieve. And so what I say about this one Jewish state, yes, it's a Jewish state, but in terms of creating the opportunity for human dignity, prosperity, security within these territories, within the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, it's a win-win for everybody. It's the only method that will de-radicalize this area. And if people just take a step back and say, do we care about a hypothetical, abstract principle that has never worked, or do we care about creating facts on the ground that make this area more dignified, more stable, more prosperous? This is the way to do it. And I would just say one thing, Gordon, Mike Pompeo said something which I thought was very profound in the forward, because this is obviously God's will as well. I mean, this is consistent with God's covenants to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. It's consistent with the prophecies of Jeremiah and Isaiah and Ezekiel. And what Mike says is, should we really be surprised that God's will actually achieves the best outcome for all the inhabitants of this land?
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. Have you talked to former President Trump about this?
Well, look, he knows this is out there. And I'll tell you the truth. If I said to President Trump tomorrow, would you be willing to recognize sovereignty over, Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria? The question he would ask me is, well, what does Israel want to do? I mean, he's not going to preempt Israel's decision, just like he wouldn't micromanage Israel's war against Hamas, which the current administration is doing. So he would say, what does Israel want to do? And I would tell him candidly, I don't know. I don't know right now. They're fighting an existential battle. It's hard for them to deal kind of in these long-term types of issues without first finishing up the existential issues. And he would say to me, look, when Israel's ready, let them come to me. Make the case for this. Make the case why this is good for Israel, why it's good for the region, why it's good for America, and I'll give it a fair hearing, and I think he will. And I think on the merits, this plan sells itself. But I think right now we're in a very very perilous time, and I don't think it's quite ready for prime time, if you will.
Well, I mean, just in recent history, right before the launch of the Abraham Accords, there was serious talk in the highest levels of Israeli government. Let's annex Judea, Samaria.
Yes.
Let's get rid of the fiction that the West Bank is some kind of occupied territory. It's ours, and let's take it. But the Abraham Accords put that.
Well, it suspended it for. By the way, the period of suspension ended on August 13th of this year. So whatever agreements were made are no longer applicable. Yeah, look, that was that was where we were. But there's a difference between that and where we are now. Because when I was sitting in the Oval Office with President Trump back in the middle of 2020, we were talking about this annexation. So he said to me, well, how much is Israel going to take? And I said, well, the plan is that they would take about half of Area C, which is about 30%, let's say, of Judea and Samaria. And he'd say, well, what about the rest? I said, well, given the Palestinian reaction, they'll probably end up with the rest of Area C, which would be about 60% of Judea and Samaria. Then he says, well, what are we left with? I said, well, you're left with Area A and B, which are Palestinian. And he said, well, how's that going to work? I mean, you're going to basically create Gaza all over again. You're going to end up with a territory, a small, narrow territory. They're going to get boxed in. Israel's not going to be there. You're not going to be helping them. They're going to be on their own, landlocked. Aren't they just going to become radicalized? Aren't you going to have another Gaza? That was a very astute point by the president. And so I took that to heart. And when I wrote this book, I said, well, let's deal with that. Israel should just take the whole thing. Let Israel take the entire territory, right? I mean, Area A and B are also very significant biblical territory. Take the whole thing, begin to export the ability to empower the Arab population in this area, focus on the human dignity and the prosperity with permanent residency. These people will know they're never going to get thrown out of their land, and begin to live together. Tear down these walls, live together, but with Israeli sovereignty over everything. I think that answers the question that the president had posed to me back in 2020.
What would you think, if the vice president becomes President Harris? What will you think will happen with Israeli policy?
Well, just at the debate, she talked about how important it is to establish a Palestinian state. I don't understand how anybody watching the news today could think that, given the challenges Israel faces from its Palestinian population on either side, either on the Gaza side or the West Bank side, how creating a platform for these people who will undoubtedly at this point be taken over by Hamas, how this could be in the interests of Israel, the interests of the Palestinians themselves, Jordan, Egypt, the whole region. It'll explode. It
wouldn't be in the U.S. interest.
It would be antithetical to American interests, of course.
But she's just echoing, President Biden, in the very first week in office, calls for a two-state solution based on the 67 borders, which from an Israeli standpoint, no, you can't do that. Well, you can fire rockets right at us.
Well, the Israeli Knesset just recently, by an overwhelming majority that included people in the center and the left, rejected the idea of a two-state solution. But it is, Gordon, it is what people say. It's the mother's milk, if you will, of the Democratic Party. They've got themselves locked into this ever since, Bill Clinton, had his moment with Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat. And it is what they believe in. And Oslo has brought this region nothing but misery. This idea that you have one state, which is Jewish and Arab, and then you have a second state, which is the heart of biblical Israel, which is only Arab, which will destroy every single, semblance of Jewish life from the past, 3 millennia. I tell people, when you think about this, think about the video you're going to watch. You're going to watch a video, in due course, once the Palestinian state is established. You're going to watch a video where Palestinians are going to go to a place like Shiloh or Bethel, and they're going to be there with, with flames and bombs and pitchforks. They're going to destroy every single remnant, every single archaeological remnant of Jewish life going back to the times of Joshua. That's what they're going to destroy. You want to watch that video? Because it's going to me, it'll be, it'll bring me to tears. It'll be like, imagine what people watched when the temples were destroyed. But that's what you're going to see, as part of a two-state solution.
Well, I've got to give some credit to Hillary Clinton, that since October 7th, she's actually been very strong for Israel.
Yes.
And it was based on the experience that she had in being in the White House as those treaties were trying to be negotiated. And she said that there's no hope here. The Palestinian side is never going to accept Israel.
No, and that's what, when people say to me, well, the Palestinians won't accept your plan, I said, well, Israel's there already. It's not a question about accepting a plan. No one needs to ask the Palestinians to give up their dreams of statehood. If that's what they want to keep talking about and thinking about, but as the Palestinians see their lives beginning to improve, as they see roads being built, schools being built, hospitals being built, through Israel, exporting its values into this area, over time, things will just get better, and we don't need to have anybody sign any piece of paper. This does not require a treaty. This requires Israel, with the support of America, asserting its sovereignty and helping and getting some help from our Abraham Accord partners to help, rebuild, the West Bank in a way which brings prosperity and security.
And prosperity and security to the whole region.
To the whole region.
So instead of all of this turmoil and radicalization. I do have to point out an old foreign policy. It was from the Israeli UN ambassador. The Arabs have never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Right.
Every time they've been given a state, regardless of the boundaries, whether it was 48 or 67 or, they've never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
And they would miss this opportunity as well if given a veto right, which is why let's just not give them a veto right. Let's just Israel move forward. This is this is Israeli territory. This is Israel's, biblical homeland. And as a matter of international law, as Mike Pompeo said when he was Secretary of State, the Jews have every right to live there, peacefully without being bombarded by terrorists. So it belongs to Israel. Let Israel just assert its sovereignty, treat the Arabs with dignity and with respect. And we move forward from there. I think it's a win-win for the entire region.
All right, Ambassador, thanks for being with us. The book is called One Jewish State, and if you, like me, have been frustrated about the situation in Israel, in the Middle East, I've got to say that this has been a conflict that goes all the way back to San Remo. So it's 104 years of this. And this is finally something that I think will be a solution that will actually work and work a long time. So I encourage you to read it. You can find it wherever books are sold. And Ambassador, again, thanks for being with us. And I've got to admire your courage. This took a lot of courage to sort of go against the State Department and the foreign policy establishment.
I'd rather be with God than with the State Department.
Amen. All right. Paul Rowe is a Harvard-trained doctor. His wife is a global marketing executive. Well, they're a power couple who learned a hard truth, that a good education and a great career don't always guarantee success.
Dr. Paul and Anncy Rowe are high-achieving professionals. She's a global marketing executive in the beauty industry, and he's a medical doctor for a pharmaceutical company. They were not consistent givers.
I always felt I had a moral obligation to give to the church, but when it came down to really understanding what tithing is, I don't think I fully grasped what it was.
My understanding of tithing and giving was embarrassingly very little.
As a medical student, Paul expected to have a successful career, but pressure from Paul's student loan debt after graduation began to exhaust more than 50% of his income at the time.
Not only did I have significant debt from medical school, but I had debt from my undergraduate. There was one time after working late in the hospital, coming off a late shift, I was still in my scrubs. I went to the local grocery store. I went to the register to pay, and I couldn't pay. My account didn't have the money. I apologized, and I rolled the card over to the side, and I walked out. And you start to think about, what are you going to do? How am I going to be able to pay off these loans and also be able to survive?
Years later, after Paul married, his wife Anncy had her own struggles as a beauty professional.
I needed to sow back into my community, and one of my communities is my church community. So I wanted to be a key part of growing the kingdom of God through my giving.
Then one night at church, Anncy went up for prayer, was called out specifically, and received a word of knowledge from her pastor.
And he said, this is going to be your year. You are going to be like a chatterbox of excitement for God and your career. He gave me that word, and I had one of the best years in my career.
Feeling empowered, Paul and Anncy responded to an appeal at their church to plant a special seed offering.
We started learning about the importance of tithing and offering. We sat down together and said, how can we become more of a partnership and a disciplined team around this?
I've never done that offering above and beyond my tithing. And I said, God has been so good to me. I'm going to sow this seed. That same week, I wrote that check again without expectation, and I had my year-end review. And that year-end review was the best year-end review I ever had.
Anncy had a special realization when she saw the amount of the bonus she received from her year-end review.
It was 100 times what I had just sowed.
2 years later, Paul moved to another company where his salary also increased. The couple were able to pay off Paul's student loans in full.
Since I started being disciplined in my tithing and giving, I've seen probably a 100% increase in my salary and income.
Today, Paul leads a team of 400 healthcare professionals. Anncy has continued to flourish in her marketing career, and the Rowe's combined income has increased by 200%. They fully attribute this to tithing and have an encouraging message for others.
I think our tithing and giving served as a key to unlock opportunities that may have been there. We've just had blessings upon blessings because of the fact that we became disciplined in our tithing and our offering. So I can't afford not to.
And that's the key, is to become disciplined. And when you come under that discipline, that's what a disciple means, that you're under discipline. You're going to live life God's way. When you do that, here's a wonderful promise for you. It's from Psalm 91. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. If you want that promise to come true, you have to do it God's way. And when you do life God's way, wonderful blessings will come. When you stray from it, well, then you're into this land of uncertainty, and you're wondering, does God have my future? Where am I? When you're confident going forward, I'm doing it God's way. He's going to answer when I call. He's going to deliver. In these uncertain times, whether it's the politics, the economics, the world situation, all of this uncertainty, isn't it wonderful to say, I can be certain about one thing: I am living life God's way. If you want to start doing this and be disciplined with your giving, it's real simple. You can call us, 1-800-700-7000, and say, I want to join the 700 Club. If you want to see people helped around the world, be a member. A portion of every gift goes into the work of Operation Blessing to bring help and hope to people in desperate need. Another portion goes into the work of CBN International to preach the gospel around the world. And now more than ever, I'm feeling that we have to get the job done. We have to complete the Great Commission. You're a part of that when you join with us. A lot of different levels you can join at. We've got 700 Club, it's $20 a month. 700 Club Gold at $40 a month. 1,000 Club is $1,000 a year, and that's $84 a month. And when you partner with the 700 Club, we want to send you a very special gift. It's a brand new teaching. It's called Pray with Power, and it's your guide to unlocking supernatural miracles and the promises of God.
Your prayers.
If you get this booklet, I believe it's going to change your life.
Get CBN's newest teaching, Pray with Power. 40 days to transform your prayer life.
You're going to begin to pray kingdom prayers. You're going to begin to declare according to the word of God.
When you become a CBN partner, you'll receive this incredible booklet, plus instant access to 2 additional teachings featuring Gordon Robertson and Charlene Aaron.
I can go and share my most intimate problems, knowing that God loves me and He wants to help.
Let me tell you, you need to get this booklet. This is going to help to really add fuel to your prayer life, to take it up a notch. And I believe if you get this, your prayer life will never be the same.
Get Pray with Power. 40 days to transform your prayer life now.
Durga is a young woman from India. She lives in painful isolation with most of her face covered. Her condition is so severe, she even thought of killing herself.
Durga lives in a small village in India. She has a deformed lower jaw, which causes her both physical and emotional pain.
I have tried everything to fix it at home, but nothing worked. Now my lower jaw swelled up and it's really hard to eat or even drink water.
Durga said she now lives in self-imposed isolation, hiding from the cruelty of the community.
What people say about my face is really hurtful. Their words broke my heart. It even made me question how I could go on living.
Finally, she had the courage to remove her face covering during our interview with her.
There have been times when I thought about killing myself.
Durga told us her family is poor and cannot afford surgery to repair her face and jaw, so she sits and waits and hopes.
Whenever I see people who look normal, I wish I could be like them too. A pretty woman like anyone else. It's hard to deal with the depression, especially when people bring up marriage. I can't even think about that. All I want is to have surgery. But my parents do not have money for it.
Then Durga heard about Operation Blessing. Thanks to your support, we were able to provide multiple free surgeries to remove a benign tumor and repair her face and jaw. And this was the result.
Thanks to you, I have now started a whole new chapter in my life. I'm thrilled. I keep looking at myself in the mirror because I can't believe how beautiful my face looks now. People who saw me after the surgery don't even recognize me. I've been dressing up and going to the market, feeling confident and happy.
Durga says she now has a happy life, one that she never thought possible before.
I am really happy that I can eat and drink without any problems now. I want to express my sincere gratitude to all the people who supported my operation. Thanks to you, I have a brand new life.
Quite honestly, it is unimaginable to think about the years that this woman has suffered, to think about the future that she thought she was going to have to face. And then 700 Club members, you stepped right into the midst of that horrible scenario, and you changed everything for her. This is just one woman whose life you've changed. If you're a 700 Club member, you've done this every day all around the world. We get to make this kind of a difference. And don't think people like Durga don't want to know about the Jesus we serve, who tells us to go into all the world and declare his goodness. Listen, if you're not a 700 Club member, you are missing out on a tremendous opportunity. It's 65 cents a day, $20 a month to join with the rest of us. If you haven't done it, can I encourage you to go to your phone and do it right now? Our number's toll free. It's 1-800-700-7000. But before you call, here are some options you have before you. A general membership is right there on the top line, $20 a month. You might want to become a 700 Club Gold member at $40 a month, or join the 1000 Club. That's $84 a month. Our 2500 Club members, $2,500 a year. That works out to $209 a month. Our founders join us at $5,000 a year, and that's $417 a month. Listen, ask God what he'd have you do. Ask him what he'd have you do, because you have the power and the opportunity to make a difference. When you call our toll-free number right now, or when you log on to cbn.com, if you prefer to do it online, you can join us that way, or you can text CBN to 71777. And the minute you join the 700 Club, we're going to send you Pray with Power. You're going to love this journal, and you're going to love the 2 teachings that are available to you as a result of it. We want you to have it. We want you to join with us. Let's change the world together. Gordon?
We want you to learn how to pray the scriptures, and this Pray with Power booklet can be your step-by-step guide. It's yours when you join the 700 Club.
Welcome to the 700 Club for this CBN News Break. The Federal Trade Commission is urging Congress to pass new privacy laws after finding social media giants conduct, quote, vast surveillance on users. It says companies like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are engaged in broad data sharing and don't keep firm track of who they sell their information to. The FTC is calling on the companies to limit data collection and delete user information. Well, CBN Nigeria is being recognized for its media content. The ministry received 4 nominations for the Nigerian Electronic Media Content Exhibition and Awards. The program's Viral Virtue, Heart to Heart, and 700 Club Nigeria all received nominations for Best Entertainment Show on TV. Superbook received a nomination for Best AI or Animation. The awards recognize content that is educational, innovative, locally relevant, and reflective of Nigeria's values and diversity. Big congrats to them in Nigeria. And you can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by going to cbn.com/international.
These Stones is a brand new series that's already getting rave reviews. 12 wins at film festivals, along with 19 nominations. And those include several awards for Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Series. This critically acclaimed series is a faith-based family drama, and it's the brainchild of producer and screenwriter Cheryl McKay.
Cheryl McKay is an executive producer and chief creative officer for Stone Impact Media. Since 1997, she's been writing stories to inspire others. Her screenplays for TV and film have attracted multiple awards, nominations, and top star talent. Her latest project, These Stones, is a family drama series now streaming exclusively on Up Faith and Family.
Cheryl McKay is here with us now, and we welcome you. It's good to have you on the 700 Club.
Thank you so much for having me, Terry.
Tell me about These Stones. What is the concept? How did this come to be?
Well, you know, there's that verse in Matthew about how Jesus dies on the cross, and then the tombs break open, and then the saints were raised from the dead.
Yes.
And they're walking around talking to people. Well, think of that concept. Like, can you imagine all of them walking around and still being alive? Well, the what if of our show is asking the question is, what if they never left? What if they're still here? And can we pair Bible characters with people going through problems that match what they went through in the past, that are still relatable to people today?
So how do you use the Matthew 28 concept for the basis of everything you're doing?
Well, we decided to have it that what if you could take a Bible character and have them show up today? They have to work undercover. So like kind of like Touched by an Angel, where in the beginning you don't really know they're an angel, and then you wait till that moment where they can have that reveal.
Yes.
But you know how you want to have the Bible, it's still relatable today, but not everybody is going to open the book.
Right.
And we're hoping that if people watch our show, they'll see that they're talking like they belong today until it's time to reveal where they came from. And then they can do Bible speak if they want to, or they can use an accent from that time. We also show you a little peek of what they looked like way back then. And that's when they get a chance to tell them, you know, this is what they went through in the past and how it relates. Because we don't have to make the Bible relevant today, it already is. But not everybody necessarily knows that or can understand that.
So when you're doing this, it's been out now for what, 3 weeks?
3 weeks,
Less
yes.
than a month. What kind of reaction are you getting?
Well, it's really fun. Like, you know, there's one thing, you have your friends that are going to watch it and they're going to love it, and your mom, you know, your dad.
Your mom's always
they're
there.
always going to be big fans. But it's been really neat that we're on Up Faith and Family, the streaming service right now, and seeing some of the ads they're running and the comments under it, and people are just like, this is so fresh, this is so original, and this is what people need today. Because it's the kind of show that can bring people hope when in a season of life where we all really need hope. And it helps people understand that they're not alone, and that we hit all these issues that people get today, like opioidism, or we have a teenager who is a cutter who has low self-esteem because of promiscuity, and she doesn't understand why she feels the way she does. Or we bring Sarah in to help a couple that's infertile, to try to help them through that navigating of what is God's answer in that. And that story was actually based on my husband and I, that we decided, God decided that he wanted me to share that story publicly for the first time. And we were able to do that through the show.
Was that episode 3?
Yes.
Yeah, I bet some deliberation had to go into whether you were going to do that or not.
A little bit, yes, because we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to have hope, or it wasn't going to feel hopeless. And I don't think it does, but I wrote the episode that I needed to see when I was going through all that myself. Because a lot of times in the Christian world, you have movies where everything turns out the way that everyone wants at the end.
Yes.
And that was what we weren't trying to do, because I got to know, my husband and I got to know. But I also wanted to show how that can be a gift, and how, because if you live in a place of hope deferred makes the heart sick. Longing fulfilled is what fixes it. But if it's never going to be fulfilled, the only way to move on with your life is for God to finally give you that definitive answer of no.
And to realize, as you're saying, that the no is actually leading you somewhere of his making that would be a missing element in your life if you got to have a yes to everything that you prayed.
Right. And seeing the fruit of that already online, people commenting on that episode about how this is the show I needed, or this is the one I relate to, this is part of my life story. And even when we had given the scripts early on to Madeline Carroll, who plays the lead from I Can Only Imagine, she plays McKenna, and the woman who plays her mom, Charlene Amoya, both of them, when they read all 6 scripts, said, this is my favorite episode. This is the one that's going to help people.
Wow.
I mean, and I know they all will, but it's just in a different way.
Yeah, well, people aren't looking for pad answers. They're looking for real in the world today. You have this beautiful study guide.
Yes.
I mean, this is a book. This isn't just a... Tell me what this is and how you'd like to see this used.
Absolutely. Susan Rohr and I, she's the director of the show, and she and I co-wrote that this summer because we realized we had a hole here. We really wanted people to be able to dive deeper into the themes of the show, the kinds of things you can't get into when you're doing a fictionalized show. So both of us wrote all the episodes with discussion guides of every one, and we want people to go deeper. And additionally, we have activations in there where we want people going out in their communities doing acts of kindness, spreading words of encouragement that are all inspired by things in the show.
Speaking of being inspired, a lot of the inspiration for this for you, maybe without realizing where it was actually taking you here, started right here on this campus.
Yes.
Tell me how you came to Regent University.
I started out acting, I got rejected, and then I realized my theater degree was worthless. And I had already written a fan letter to Susan Rohr saying, how do I do what you do? I saw her work on television. And so she said, well, come to Regent when you're ready. And so I came here, got my film degree and learned screenwriting while I was here, and made her give me an internship at North Star, which she was making after-school specials at the time, which helped me as a teenager. Like, I was riveted to them, watching them at the time when they were on the air, and somehow found her address and wrote her a fan letter back then when I was only 15 years old. So that was like the beginnings of not realizing that we later would collaborate on this show together with my team at Stone Impact Media.
And here you are, both names on this book as God brought you together.
Yes.
You know, talk about that for a minute, because I think, you know, you talked about the rejections that you received when you thought you wanted to be an actress, or that that was even what you were called to. God changes our script and our direction.
Absolutely.
And we need to be listening for that, don't we?
We do. I mean, I always call it my best rejection because I love being alone. I'm an introvert, and I love being alone and writing with my characters, and I'll act them out at the same time. I'll cry. If I'm not crying, you're not crying. You know, so I love that. And the other thing, one of the phrases I love from our show is the messy middle. And we gave that line to Karen Abercrombie, who's Miss Clara in the War Room. And it's like, when you want to live in that messy middle, sometimes that's where God is, letting us go through rejection and pain, but it's always to bring us to a place where it's going to be better. That's that Romans 8:28 theme is what I love to tell.
And never leaving us alone in the middle of the mess, but
absolutely
walking right through it with us. Lots of people have just come in for the fall here at Regent University. What advice would you give people who are considering?
I would say that if you want to work in this film industry, number one, Regent is a great place to learn, but also make sure that you know that there is power in your pen and that you are going to be able to impact people through this industry.
And you are, Cheryl McKay. You are through these stones, and want to encourage you to watch the series. It's streaming now on Up, Faith and Family. And while you watch, make sure to get the official study guide by Cheryl and Susan Rohr. It's available nationwide through Amazon. Thank you so much for what you've done and what you're doing. Leave you with these words from Isaiah: trust in the Lord forever, for in God the Lord we have an everlasting rock.